Welcome back again to the Bailout Mindset, where we talk about finance, entrepreneurship, and investing. And in our today's video, we are going to be taking you through some of the strategies that you can use to go ahead and protect your assets. Therefore, our subject of today is none other than asset protection, and what are some of the asset protection strategies that you can use, especially as an African. More valuable videos from the Bailout Mindset community. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell below so that you may receive more valuable content from us. So let's dive right into our subject of today. I do believe that you have heard stories, either babako alikuwa na shamba ikaibiwa na relative, either guka yako alikufa manko wakakuja wakawanyang'anya shamba ama gari. And there is a friend of mine whose father happened to pass away, only to find out that credit card ilikuwa na Kuzo juu Kuzo ndiye alikuwa mtu wa mwisho kuongea naye, so apparently ndiye alipatiwa credit card na pin. And you know what they decided to do? They went and withdrew 14 million cash na akachomoka hata kukuja mazishi. So there are so many famous stories. Even just recently, a friend of ours, his dad happened to pass away. Only the uncle alitoka majuu akakuja akachukua copy za title deed na akapanda gari anaenda airport, so wali happen kumshikia airport. But these are some of the things you need to avoid, and I totally believe that the millennials, you have really lost a lot of wealth that was entitled or planned for you, only to find it being grabbed or snatched by another person. Now back then vitu zilikuwanga zinachukuliwa na marelatives ama na marafiki. Saizi hata serikali itachukua vitu zako if you don't protect your assets with the right strategies. So let's dive right into our subject of today. And if you believe that this video is of value for you, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends and families, or any wealthy individual or a rich individual or just a startup entrepreneur mwenye anajaribu kujenga utajiri, because I do believe that everybody is here to simply do one thing and one thing alone: build enough wealth that will make you live a comfortable lifestyle with freedom and quite a variety of options. So if you keep on wondering, these are the strategies zenye akina John Rockefeller wametumia, these are the strategies the likes of akina Ray Dalio wanatumia, Elon Musk, and so on and so forth. So if you do apply these strategies in your life, I'm going to guarantee you that you are going to become wealthy and rich in the next few decades. And if you already have assets and you're looking for ways to go ahead and protect your assets, then this is just the video for you. So what is asset protection? Asset protection is a form of financial planning whereby you go ahead and protect your assets from liabilities. And liabilities include creditors, liabilities include debt, liabilities include, or you can even say, it is a form of financial planning whereby you're simply protecting your assets from financial predators. Who are financial predators? Financial predators are people whose sole purpose is there to get part of your money and make it there. Yani wako hapo kukunyang'anya pesa yako. Mwingine anaweza sema ni kunyang'anywa, mwingine anaweza sema ni kuibiwa, mwingine atasema ni kudhulumiwa. But at the end of the day, these scenarios are happening in your life because one, lack of enough financial education, lack of enough financial planning, lack of asset protection strategies. And since we are the Bailout Mindset, we are here to make sure that we elevate you beyond the poverty line. Then we decided to bring you this valuable piece of nugget. And so let's dive right into some of we are just going to be looking at only 5 strategies. Now, strategies to protect your assets ni mingi sana, but these are the 5 major strategies that the influential, the politicians, the rich, the wealthy, the elite wanatumianga hizi strategies. Na strategy number 1 yenye wanatumianga ni gani? You need to make sure that you use a corporate veil. Now, what is a corporate veil? A corporate veil is a legal structure or a legal entity that the government recognizes. Now, we mentioned this in our previous video. If you're looking to raise capital without a structured business, then wewe unaota. Entrepreneurship achana nayo, biashara achana nayo. If you're doing anything in your life and it has no corporate veil, it has no corporate structure, then simply know that you are going to be experiencing 100% liability. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about uko na gari na imeandikwa kwa majina zako. If it happens to get an accident, then that's on you. If it happens ikuwe mahali na ilikuwa na gas, tuseme ulikuwa umeweka hiyo LPG gas nyuma hiyo gari yako, imehappen imeleak, imelipuka, that's on you. So mtu alikuwa anatembea tu kwa plot yako, ameteleza, ameanguka, amevunjika, they can go and sue you, and that's also on you. So you need to protect your assets, and you protect your assets by using corporate veils. And what are corporate veils? Corporate veils are structures such as limited liability companies, companies limited by guarantee, companies limited by shares, public liability companies. So it depends with what kind of corporate veil you want to use in order to safeguard your assets. And by using a corporate veil, it means you are no longer be the one who is an owner, who owns your assets. You are now going to be the one owning the corporate veil, but the corporate veil is going to own your assets. Now, depending on the kind of asset that you want, there are different corporate veil structures that you can actually use. Inaitwa veil sababu ni kama buibui, inakufunika, hiyo inaonekana, unakosa kuonekana. Ni kama bibi harusi. Bibi harusi haonyeshwangi, bibi harusi ufichwa, anafunuliwangwa akifika pale kwa bwana yake. So it is the same way with you. Kindly use a corporate veil. And if you look at all wealthy, the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, Odinga, Ruto, all politicians, all businessmen, all renowned businessmen, wote wanatumianga kitu moja, they use corporate structures. Why? Because with a corporate structure, you have more credibility, you have limited your liabilities, and most importantly, the government is not going to recognize wewe ndio mwenye hiyo mali. Itaangalia the company or the partnership ndio mwenye hiyo mali, and that saves you a lot of stress even when it comes to filing your taxes and so on and so forth. Even when it comes to insuring your properties, corporate veils have so many advantages which will always lead you to number two. And number two, hata kama wewe ni mna biashara mdogo, you just started making some money, 50,000, 30,000, you always need to retain a lawyer. And now retaining a lawyer is quite expensive, especially in Kenya. You might retain a lawyer from as low as 200,000 annually, depending on your understanding with your lawyer. It might go to as much as 500,000 annually, or even 350,000 annually, depending on the type of lawyer you're looking for and the service that you're going to be offering you. So we have corporate lawyers, we have civil lawyers, depending. But the beauty of retaining a lawyer, especially as a businessman, is that one, you get easy consultation. Yani ule mtu unajua umelipa mtu ni kama kukuwa na accountant. Na kazi yake ni kuhakikisha hesabu yako iko sawa ya biashara. Ni the same na kuretain lawyer. Kazi yake ni kuhakikisha maisha yako yanaendelea vizuri, especially when it comes into the legal aspects. And I want to make it clear, at least there are not less than 30 laws which are always being introduced daily in our country. And that's why it is very, very hard to keep up with the law. But when you retain a lawyer, you have the privilege, and the luxury of getting on the phone, calling a lawyer and asking, hey, by the way, I wanted to start this type of business. Oh, I have started this type of business. I'm making this amount of money. How can I go about it? And then the lawyer now will guide you, will tell you either you can go ahead and use a limited company, a partnership, a sole proprietor, the limited by guarantee. Sababu most of the corporate veils usually have to be formed with a legal assistant at hand. Usiende kujifanyia hizi vitu peke yako. There are some people who love saving money, and you think you're going to save money if you eliminate the lawyer part of helping you to go ahead and incorporate your assets or protect your assets. My friend, you're just going to mess up, and you're going to actually incur bigger losses than the ones that you will have prevented by just hiring a lawyer. Now, 250,000 sounds quite a bit of a lot of money, but I do believe that you can always come up with a deal and negotiate yourself with the lawyer. Now, upate lawyer hata you can decide to retain them. I don't know if it is possible to retain them monthly or 6 months. Though, if you'd like us to talk more about retainership, we can always invite one of our legal advisors who is always going to come and advise to you and tell you how to go about if you'd like to retain a lawyer. You can also get in touch in the comment section, or you can reach us out through our email, and we can always give you more insights on how to go about this strategy of asset protection, which is retaining a lawyer. It always goes hand in hand with the corporate veil. You cannot have a corporate veil without a lawyer. Just like having multiple businesses and multiple companies without legal assistance, then something is going to be totally wrong, and you're going to totally mess up one way or another. So apart from consultations, kuna vitu kama legal contracts. I always talk about this, especially in Africa. We have seen our parents being traumatized. We have seen our relatives being traumatized. We have seen our friends being traumatized simply because hawakukuwa na legal contracts. Na hiyo ina apply kwa kila kitu, whether ni watu wanajenga site, whether ni mtu umepatia kazi, doesn't matter whether it's a housemaid, whether it's a shamba boy, whether it is just one employee, regardless of the circumstances, you always need to make sure that you have now legal contracts. Hata wewe unaweza ujitengenezee, but a lawyer always comes in because of the clause that you're going to put there. You need to have clause that are actually going to protect your assets. What if umepatia mtu kitu yako ameenda nayo amefanya huko ajali? What are the next steps that will happen? What if something happened, let's say, into one of your properties? What is going to happen? What if you bought a piece of land and you got defrauded? What is going to happen? Usually these things happen. Cases of fraud, corruption, and so on and so forth, they usually happen due to lack of clear legal contracts. Hizo ndizo zinafanyanga watu wanapoteza mali mingi. Na so kama utaki kupoteza mali yako juu umehaso, umesweat, saa zingine hata umekosa kulala, usikubali kupoteza kashamba kaende sababu haukukuwa na contract. And this also applies even when you're getting married. Have a contract with your wife, because if you don't have a contract, you can have a prenup agreement. There are so many things that actually come with having a retainer. You can have a prenup agreement. You can have different contracts. Hata mnaweza wana na contract. These things are there. So there are different cases that need different types of lawyers to be retained in order to help you with specific problems. Si kila lawyer anaweza fanya kila kitu, na so usiende kwa lawyer wa real estate umpelekee kesi ya corporate. Tafadhali, huyo mtu atakusaidia, the only thing atafanya atakula pesa yako. Usipelekee lawyer wa family law kesi ya banking, totally you're going to get different results. Usipelekee mtu wa intellectual property kesi ya civil, so it's also not going to, you're not going to get the best information. Now, here in Africa, we always think of a lawyer as a doctor. Ati daktari anaweza tibu kila kitu, but you need to understand that we have a surgeon, we have a neurosurgeon, we have a physiotherapist, we have so many different types of doctors in the same industry. So the same case applies with every industry. Hata kwa malawyer, there are different types of lawyer depending on your needs. You now need to go and do your research. And if you feel like it is a tedious process, you can always get in touch with us, and we can always give you a bit of advice on how to navigate through on getting a good retainer who is, the moment umeamua tu ku retain lawyer, jua you are retaining that person either for a few years or even for life, depending with how you're going to build a relationship, because everything is all about maintaining good relationships, especially with your advisors. Your advisors are going to make you much more money than you're going to spend on them. And if you're spending more money on them than they are making you, then just know that's a bad advisor and you need to run immediately. So also when you have a retainer, mostly they will also have a contract with you to talk about how they can help you and what are the things that they are going to be catering on your behalf. So that's strategy number 2. Na ndio maana unasikianga every time there is an argument or there is a scandal, especially with big businessmen, with the elite, mtu wa kwanza unasikianga ametokelezea na kwanga ni wakili. Wakili akishatokelezea sasa, kesi inapatiwa wakili, ule anaenda anatulia. Unaanza kusikia cash bail, bond, sijui nini, huyo mtu anaenda anatawala nje. Wewe sababu you don't have a retainer, you don't have any legal advisor, if anything happens to you, you don't even know where to go and start looking for. And that is the number one cause of poverty. Poverty is not the lack of money. Poverty is the lack of understanding what your money is. So a retainer is one of the things that will really enlighten you on what your money is. So strategy number 3 is registering with different entities or with different people. Now, this one is a little bit delicate, and I would prefer you use this is not financial advice. This is advice you need to take for yourself and not misuse it, because that is something that is out of my control. You can choose to use it well. I totally warn you not to misuse this strategy. Strategy number 3, which is one, you can always register different entities. I think you have heard of some people whom I'm not going to mention. Unasikia huyu jamaa sijui anaown Farmers Choice, so mara ako Rubis, sijui mara anaown Brookside, anaown Mount Kenya. Now, and you wonder, why do they own so very many different companies? One, it is to ensure that they diversify their risks and they limit it to specific areas. So kama wacha nitumie example simple, wewe ni foreman na uko na construction company yako iko na wafanyikazi, but at the same time you and your wife have a small business running. It might be a wholesale, it might be a chain store, it might be a supermarket. Now you are entitled in order to diversify that risk, because if anything happens in one side of the business na hizi assets zingine ziko still under your name, I'm telling you, if somebody is suing you, they are not just going to come for the assets zenye ziko kwa ile the first company, which I'll say company A limited, watakujia bado vitu zote zenye una own za company B limited. So you use different structures to diversify your risk, whereby if one sector is affected, the other won't affect it. If one business is affected, the other business won't affect it. Secondly, using different companies helps you in order to actually go ahead and use leverage differently. If you have, let's say, for example, 3 companies, let's say company A limited, company B limited, company C limited. Company C can go and take debt out of on its own. Company D can go and take debts out of on its own. Company A can go and take debt out of its own. And if company B fails, company A and company C and company D won't be affected. Secondly, watu wenye wanataka kukusorora, because especially here in Africa, that is just something that is within our nature. Usoro, people want to know how much wealth you own. Then it is always good to register the properties under different entities, because when you do that, then it also helps you to limit some of your tax liabilities, and so many other things. Yani ndio hapo ndio unapatanga, kama uko na shamba 10, usichukue shamba zote 10 uziweke kwa Wanyonyi Limited. No, chukua shamba 2 eka kwa Wanyonyi Limited, chukua shamba zingine 2 eka kwa Mutuya Limited, chukua shamba zingine 4 eka kwa Gevenji Limited, chukua maybe gari zako 5 eka kwa Kemani Limited ama kwa Kemani LLP. So unaona umeweza kudiversify, so mtu hatakuwa na kuchunguza, sababu I told you the beauty of a corporate veil is that it actually protects you from liabilities, especially if people are really targeting you in person. Mtu anapata una kitu. That's how unasikianga wakina Andrew Tate wanasema they are super rich but they don't own anything, because wealth is not about ownership. Wealth is all about control. So if you're not going with the strategies of using different entities, you can always go with using different people. Now, if you have a relative that you trust, if you have a brother, if you have a sister, if you have a good friend that you trust and they are really, really loyal to you, and unajua kuna siku moja mtaachana, you can always go ahead and register your assets with these different people. For example, I remember there is a very famous case whereby there was this NBA star who was sued by his wife. Bibi akapata kila kitu yake aliregister na mama yake, yeye hana kitu, akona tu gari. So it happened to napata that the competition was low, because you will marry a woman, she's going to give you babies, and she's going to sue you because she wants 50% of everything. And if you have everything within just your names or within one entity, my friend, you're going to cry. Wanaume wamejiua. Hata hiyo unasikia hizi kesi za kukatakata wanawake nini, it's because mtu alikosa kuprotect assets zake only to find out that zimechukuliwa with a financial predator, and you can see the results are becoming very devastating. So usijiue na stress huko nje, and you can actually take these simple precautions to ensure that you safeguard your wealth, not just for you, not just for today, but for the next generation. So you have kids and unataka kuwanunulia shamba, you can go ahead, put it under their names. You are getting a salary in multiple streams of income, then you can decide to redirect these different salaries into different entities or to different people. Now this will help you in so many things, which if you'd like us to have an in-depth look on all these 5 different strategies one by one, then feel free to comment on the section below, asset protection strategies, and we are all going to be looking at an in-depth look of each one of these. So the next and the fourth strategy of actually protecting your assets is by use of trust. Now, what is a trust? A trust is basically an agreement between the guarantor and the trustee. The guarantor is usually the trustor, and the trustee is usually the person who is managing these assets on behalf of the guarantor. So it is just a document. You can have a family trust, you can have a land trust, there are very many different forms of trust. So the thing about it is that for you able to form a trust, I mentioned you need a retainer. So there are some steps you can't jump, especially during there's some steps you cannot jump in your life when you're trying to actually build wealth for yourself. And one of them is that hauwezi ruka hii part ya legal. Ukiruka hiyo part ya legal, only poor people do not have legal advisors, but all rich people and elite people always have different legal advisors for different use. And as you can see here, this person is very, very, very critical in order to help you to really achieve your journey of financial planning. And so by using a trust, you simply transferring your assets to now the trust. Now the trust is a legal entity that is recognized by the government, and it has so many tax advantages, and it has so many advantages. You can even dictate how you want your family to actually live for the next 5 or 20 years. Unaweza amua useme hii shamba nimetransfer kwa trust yangu, na hii trust imesema kama huyu kijana hatapata A minor, ama kama hatakuwa lawyer, ama kama hatakuwa daktari, Kenya atabaki akitumia shamba ni kulima, lakini hakuna siku moja ataiuza na itawahi kuwa yake. So basically the trustee is there to do everything for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. So kwa trust tuko na watu watatu. Tuko na the truster, usually the guy who decides to form the trust. We have the trustee, the guy who is usually managing the assets in the trust on behalf of the beneficiary. And now we have the beneficiary. How does this turn out? Let me use a simple scenario. So mko shamba kwenyu iliachwa na Guka, lakini Guka bila alikufa, yeye aliacha kama amesema shamba igawanwe kwa Githinji, kwa Modhoni, kwa Njeri na kwa Saimo. But there was no written document, and it happened to be that we divided the land. Githinji aliuza yake, Njeri ameuza yake, Saimo ameenda Dubai, na Modhoni yeye hataki kuuza. And so you happen to squeeze her in between, so analazimishwa sasa kuuza na wale watu wengine, so she's going to lose definitely a property. Ama wale wawili wamejiunganisha, wameamua wauze kila kitu, sababu hakuna mahali kuliandiko ati shamba inafaa kugawanwa hivi na hivi kwa nani na nani na nani, apart from now ile tu heshima yenye tunakuanga nayo ya wazazi wetu. So for you to avoid all that stress, kwa shamba weka kwa trust. You can dictate it as an irrevocable trust where you say hii shamba itagawanywa kama Modhoni, Njeri na Saimo wamepata watoto na wamemaliza degree. Kama wajamaliza, hiyo shamba ni ya kila mtu. The best they can do, wanaweza actually hata hawatalima. The trustee since ndiye ana control hiyo shamba, anaweza amua lime, aweke pesa, and if the beneficiaries achieve what you wanted them to achieve, then they can be able now to take some of those returns. Or you can even dictate to say my property is simply going to be generating income for the next 20 years. Ilipia watoto school fees, kila mtu akimaliza kusoma sasa ndio mtu ako na right ya kuuza hiyo ploti. That is another way to. So basically, those are some of the ways that a trust can be used. The trustee is always there to manage your funds. There are some now, those multimillionaires, who they take like millions of money, they put it in a trust, the trustee manages the money, they get a return on the investment, and now they distribute these funds to the beneficiary. So every different entities have different advantages and disadvantages. So for those who are feeling like it's risky to register a company because of all these other obligations, you can always go with something as simple as a trust. It is very efficient to hold insurance policies, very efficient to hold assets such as land, gold, silver, art pieces, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. So it is way actually safer than using different people, because the thing about a human being has one weakness. A human being is an emotional being, and you really don't know what an emotional being is going to do the next day if you happen to have a quarrel with them and they have some of your properties or some of your assets registered in them. You can imagine huyo mtu Kenya anaweza kufanyia. So depending, that depends on your risk appetite. So always use trust, and we have different forms of trust. Now we have the first one, which is a living trust. Now with a living trust, it simply means that the guarantor or the trustor is still alive. So I am still alive. I have created my trust, and I have already dictated the clauses that are actually going to be guiding that trust. Then kuna testamentary. Testamentary ni post after huyu mtu amekufa. So let's say mtu amekufa, this is called a testamentary trust, whereby there were amendments that were made whereby in case this person now has died, things have to be carried on differently because the trustee is no longer there. Now the beneficiaries can always come and be in charge, or the trustee can go ahead and tell them what are the next steps that they need to take in order to either recover the assets or enjoy the assets that are in the trust itself. So, and within these forms of trust, we have two types of trusts. We have an irrevocable trust and we have a revocable trust. With a revocable trust, it simply means the owner of the trust can amend it anytime. Anaweza imaliza, dissolve, anaweza toa some assets from the trust azitransfer into another entity ama azitumie vile anataka. Anaweza amua wind up your trust kama amekasirika ama ameona it has finished its purpose. So this is the thing about revocable trust. When it comes to irrevocable trust, ukishatengeneza hiyo trust na imemaliza kuandikwa na kila kitu, imeshafailiwa hadi kwa registrar, then my friend, you cannot change anything. And these are some of those strategies that now you need to use. Now you use an irrevocable trust if you're planning for the next 2 generations. You don't use an irrevocable trust when you're just planning for yourself. So I mentioned that when it comes to the irrevocable trust, hiyo kunanga kurudi nyuma na hiyo ishangi. So that is one of the best ways actually to protect your assets. That is if you have really written down your financial plan and you are 100% sure of the decision you're going to make, because when it comes to irrevocable trusts, there is no going back. So that's the thing about the irrevocable trust. The last but not least means of asset protection is the most efficient way of actually protecting your assets, which is through insurance. And basically, what is insurance? You always need insurance when you don't need it. You don't need insurance when you need it. You need insurance when you do not need it. And that is why it is called insurance. You insure, you pay for the liability before it happens, so that by the time the liability happens or the incident happens, then you can be able to be compensated for the value of your asset. And there are different forms of insurance. We have life insurance, where you can insure your kids and you can put yourself as a beneficiary. You can put your wife as a beneficiary. You can insure yourself and you can put your family as a beneficiary. Lakini sababu in Africa watu wanaogopanga kuuliwa sababu ya life insurance, you can have a life insurance policy and you can also hold it under a trust. You know, a trust can also hold an insurance policy. You can have an insurance that can actually be held by a company, you know, and the company can insure you. So You can have, there are way different types of insurance. We have comprehensive insurance where you can insure your assets such as vehicles. We have public liability insurance whereby you can insure the premises of your business. If you are a landlord, you can insure your apartment. Depending if you are operating heavy machinery, you can insure your machinery because things really happen bana. Unaweza kuwa na mfanyikazi akatwe mkono na mashini, you end up coughing way a lot of money. So insurance really helps you to mitigate many of these liabilities. And we have personal accidental cover also. These are different types of insurance where you can insure yourself, whether you're a driver, whether it's you yourself. We have home insurance where you can insure your home so that in case of anything, bibi anaweza amka na kufagia nyumba na kuibe vitu, that is theft. That is kama nyumba imevunjwa, depending with insurance you can go and be compensated. Usiende huko kulia useme ati vitu zilichukuliwa. You can lose. Yani, in short, always understand that you protect your assets because of financial predators, and financial predators are plenty. We have the brides, we have the brothers-in-law and the family-in-law, we have your own family, we have the bureaucrats who, like the KRA, the iTax, the government bureaus, wenye wanataka tu kukujia mali yako sababu hujatimiza vitu zenye unafaa kufanya. So we have many types of financial predators, and if you'd like us to look at the 5 different financial predators that you should watch out in order to safeguard your assets and your wealth, feel free to comment on the section below, financial predators, and we are going to be looking at an in-depth look at the financial predators. Also, as I mentioned, we can look at the in-depth look of things like insurance, and we can also invite insurance experts in the industry, and they can actually come and tell you more about the value of insurance as an asset protection strategy, because these are some of the ways that you can actually go ahead and safeguard your assets. And the thing about insurance is that there are some types of insurance that actually have tax waivers or tax certificates. This enable you to actually waive some of your taxes from the original taxes that you are required to reimburse the taxman. So if you have really received value from this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell below, and you can share to as many people as you can so that they can receive this valuable information. I really wouldn't be happy to see any millennial losing his wealth yenye umehasulia, you have sweat, you have experienced sleepless nights only to find yourself losing your property or your assets simply because you did not practice or carry out some of these strategies, which are actually the strategies that are being used by the elite. And if you'd like to start being rich, if you'd like to start being wealthy, start by the simple things. Do what wealthy and rich people do. Lakini kama unafanya vitu vile maskini anafanya, unatarajia aje kupata pesa? Hiyo ni siasa uko nayo. So kindly, especially the bailout community, bail out yourself with this valuable information. And if you'd like to reach us and get an in-depth understanding of everything, then feel free to get in touch with us through our email, through our platforms, and we are always available to ensure that we bail you out to the next level beyond the poverty line where freedom lies and variety of options lie. Stay tuned, and I'll be seeing you in our next series.